One day he was a healthy, fun-loving 10-year-old boy, but his family says the next day he was dead after contracting a rare disease from his pet rat.
Now his family suing Petco, claiming that store giant sold them an infected rat. Dr. Mark Siegel, Fox News Medical A team with me now. Doc, let's start with you. Is this possible, as the family claims?
Yes, I think it's possible, and a very sad story, Bill. The strep that this was caused by is actually fairly common among rats, and it can be the rat could be asymptomatic. Number one. Number two, the child may not have actually been bitten by the rat. It could have been a scratch or just handling the rat in the cage. So this child who had had previous rats may have been so used to the rat, the child may not have been on the lookout for it. Maybe the pet store didn't warn them sufficiently, because this can happen very rapidly. Now, the Centers for Disease Control has only reported a couple of hundred cases of this. And unfortunately, in this case, if you're treated very quickly for this, you probably are not going to die from it. 25% fatality if it's untreated, but simple penicillin would have treated this. So it's so tragic that they didn't recognize it early enough, with muscle aches, fatigue, a rash usually, nausea, vomiting, and joint aches. Those are the most common symptoms. He probably thought it was just the flu he had.
Oh, my goodness. We want to bring in Brian Claypool. He is a defense attorney. Brian, as you know, the family wants to sue Petco. Who is at fault here?
Well, Petco has a responsibility to make sure that this rat received an adequate vaccine or an inoculation to make sure that the rat would not infect somebody who bought the rat. So that's obvious. But what Petco is going to do here is they like any other major store like Target, PetSmart, Petco, they have what's called vendor agreements with these other wholesalers. So in other words, there's a facility outside of Los Angeles who provided the rat to Petco. So Petco's going to blame them and say,
the company's going to blame the supplier.
Oh, absolutely. They have these vendor agreements. They have what's called a hold harmless agreement with the supplier. And what that means is the supplier has to assume full responsibility financially if it was their fault. So if I'm Petco, I'm going to go back and say, hey, look, you didn't adequately give a vaccine to this rat. But if I'm the family, I'm going to say, hey, look, you're the face of the transaction. You have to assume responsibility.
And so very quickly, Dr. Siegel, this rat bite fever, as it's being called, you're saying that it's not normally deadly. Parents out there, rats, by the way, are becoming more and more popular pets. Parents don't need to panic. Antibiotics can usually treat it.
Yeah, absolutely. But I'm actually not aware of a vaccine for it. Certainly a rat has to have vaccines. Any pet does. But I think the issue here is that a rat can have it. It's a respiratory infection, and it's a simple strep, which is a bacteria. The rat could have it, and you might not know it. You could be handling it. It could be a rat without any symptoms. Yeah. I'm worried about that. It's usually in the wild, but more and more in pet stores.
All right, guys, thanks so much. We'll put more information out on Twitter.
Story.
Thanks so much, Brian Claypool, Dr.